this, Kirk is going to remain in his title, which is, I think it's EVP. I don't pay a lot of attention to titles, to be frank, but basically same role he's had, and he's been with us for 13 years, so has a role in the organization. And there'll probably be some other changes Mike will make going forward within the organization, raising the responsibilities of some, obviously, to take up some of the slack. But overall, very, very excited to have him and welcome him here today.
Well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Let me just start with thanking you and Peter and our whole ownership group for this opportunity. Really, really special moment for me and my family. This is one of the premier organizations in all of sports. And so for me to be able to have the opportunity to continue to lead our group means a tremendous amount. We certainly have some work cut out for us, but I think the future is bright. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank my predecessor, Bob Myers. Bob's been an agent for me. I've worked for him. He's been a great mentor, but most of all, he's been a great friend. And we're all going to miss him here. I know I speak for everybody. Big shoes to fill, but we've got a great group, great collaboration. It's very doable. It's funny, I was talking to Bob this week, and he asked me if, you going to do the job? And I said, yeah, I think so. But, I got to be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable, taking your job. And he said, Dunleavy, come on, man. It's not like you're taking an organ. It's just a job. And so we sort of had a laugh about that. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm good to go here. Got Bob's approval, which is good. And he's somebody I've leaned on and will continue to lean on, as will a lot of people in our organization. So thank you, Bob, for all you've done with this team. And you will be missed, but we know you'll be around. The other people I'd like to thank are my family, my parents. Obviously, a lot of people know my dad from coaching and playing and also being a GM. So he's set a tremendous example for me growing up. My mom as well. Anything you may say good about me probably is from my mom, not my dad. And so thanks, Mom. And then last but not least, recognize my immediate family, my 4 kids. My oldest daughter, Lucy's here today. And most especially my wife, Sarah, who, if anybody knows this business, the moving around, it's very transient, tough hours, strange things, a lot of unknowns. And so having a support system like family and a wife like Sarah has been tremendous. So you're a rock. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everything. And thanks for the stuff moving forward, because I know you're going to be quite busy. Now, as far as the job, I'd say, it starts now. We've got a big week with the draft coming up. And our roster's in a good place. I'd say we don't have too many decisions to make, but we have things to consider. And we will take a lot of things into account. The draft is certainly one of the 3 areas we feel like we can improve on. And looking back on last year, by all accounts, we had a successful season. But for us, finishing the top 8 after winning the championship, we know and we want to be better. And our goal this summer will be to go about improving our roster. We've got we got one key player that we love to bring back. And then after that, my main objective, our group's main objective would be to improve and feel like going into it, we've got a shot to contend for a title again. So I'm confident about that. I'm excited to continue working with our great players, our coaches, and our staff. As Joe mentioned, the thing that I've experienced here and feel great about is the collaboration, all of us working together and, creating the synergy that's gone so well here. So really appreciative of the job and the opportunity, Joe. Thanks again. And, here we go. I'm open to any questions or anything anybody has.
Yes. So much of what Bob was known for was his established relationships with the main players, Draymond, Steph, Clay. How do you feel like your established relationship is with those guys right now?
Yeah, I think it's good. I've reached out to those guys in the last week or so, and we've had good conversation, getting to know them over the last few years, even more so. We have the mutual respect of having played. I played 15 years in the league, nowhere near as accomplished as those guys, but I think there's a mutual bond and understanding. And like I said, I've gotten to know those guys well enough over the last few years, and will continue to do so. But those guys, they're the core of what we do. So having a relationship with them is important.
Mike, Bob said last month when he on his departing news conference that you could do the job. You'd be great if you want it. So was there a thought process here that you had to go through in addition to talking to Bob that told you, okay, this is what I want to do, or did you want the job all along?
Yeah, I think anytime, an opportunity like this comes up, in most cases it's a no-brainer, but you should always think through things. I'm pretty measured in my approach. I'll do that. We'll do that with our decisions going forward. But sure, I think you want to talk to your family about it and consider things. But when Joe presented me with the opportunity, I just didn't see a way where I didn't want to do it.
Mike, when you left here, it probably wasn't the best terms as a player. When did you, what was it like coming back into the organization? Was there a part of you that's like, I'm never going back there again? Or how did you smooth that part out?
Yeah, what's funny is, it's how things can kind of come full circle. Although, that circle that I was in when I played, it's a different city. It was almost like a different organization, different city, different team, far less success. So to say it's come full circle probably wouldn't be accurate. But ever since I've gotten back, I felt very comfortable. This is a tremendous organization. Go in there and see the banners that are up. Much different than when I was here as a player. But I have learned that in this league, when you leave a situation or traded or move on, things come back around. My dad played for the Milwaukee Bucks. He coached for the Milwaukee Bucks as assistant. He came back as a head coach, and then I went there as a player. So I've moved to and from Milwaukee 4 times. So I've learned in this business, you don't really cross anything off the books. And so needless to say, coming back here has been great. Love our fan base. The passion's amazing, and you kind of felt that the last 5 years. And I think we all just want to kind of keep this thing going.
Mike, you said there aren't that many huge decisions to make, but obviously most of us on the way driving over here heard about Draymond opting out. And one, were you expecting that? And two, you are getting thrown kind of right into the fire of a pretty critical summer for this team as terms of what it's going to look like in the future. Just, are you prepared for that? And again, were you surprised about Draymond?
Yeah, so I saw the report too. Until we get the paperwork and the filing, we can't really comment or say much. So I will say, I think Steve has said it, and I'll reiterate, we really want Draymond back. What he means to this organization, this team, in terms of trying to win at the highest level, we feel like we have to have him. So that's very important. Beyond that, yeah, I think a lot can be made of all the challenges that are coming our way, whether it be aging roster, the new CBA with some of the limitations there, anything else you can bring up. But we're aware of all those things, but we also feel like we're in a great place because we've got a competitive owner willing to spend and a group that's really tied in. It's got good synergy, good processes, good sound decision making. So we feel confident we can navigate it.
Mike, you worked with Bob for a number of years. What do you think is similar with the way you guys operate, and what differentiates you in the way that you operate?
They're both tall.
And we have bad hips.
And they have bad hips, I've learned. They both have bad hips.
I think as far as similarities, we're really close. So I guess there's got to be a lot of things that align. But, I'd probably start with humility. I think for the most part, we're pretty humble guys, family first. And I think we're good listeners. Both like to hear people out and hear groups out. And as leaders, try and make the right decision. Differences, I think I'm a slightly better basketball player than him. But after that, Bob is out of this world talented in what he's able to do with people, and his record speaks for itself. So if I can be anywhere near the realm of successful as he's been here, it would be great.
Joe, I just kind of wanted to ask. I know you mentioned the collaborative approach that the front office has always taken, but obviously there is an ultimate decision maker, a power structure within a front office. Do you view, Mike's elevation to the level from a power structure standpoint that Bob was at, or is that shifting at all?
No, it's he's the top basketball decision maker. You can call it titles, whatever you want. But he's the top basketball decision maker in the organization. Perhaps a little bit of difference is that when Bob came in, actually, it's hard to remember, all these years ago now, but he came in right as an agent and was an assistant GM, actually, when he started. And we promoted him to GM. And then he got a title change subsequently, with success and more of a more of a compensation thing, I think, more than anything else, because he was really in the same role. And so Mike is in the same role. He's the top decision maker within basketball. So from my standpoint, he's the guy that I'll be calling however many times people think I call him a day. Actually, he called me this morning. I just want you to know, woke me up. Actually, I was up, but I was watching a show on TV, First Take.
Joe, a couple quick questions. Have you already been calling and texting Mike recently?
Is that a serious question?
Well, when did you first start texting and calling?
Well, first of all, it started long before he got this job. Obviously, we communicate. I communicate did communicate only with Bob, but, with Kirk and Larry Harris and the draft and Mike, but not as often. Obviously, Bob got the brunt of that. We communicate a lot. And one of the things that you have to be able to do this job, you have to be a good communicator. He has to be able to communicate, to the players, with the players, and I think he's going to be great at it, by the way. As a former player, it certainly will help. He has to communicate to his employees, people who work for him in basketball operations, and he's got to be able to communicate up, which is me. And that's actually all CEOs in companies, if you want to compare it to that, it's kind of the same thing. That's what makes a great CEO, a great leader, is someone who can do all three levels of communication, here, and here. And this guy has that ability. He's a really good communicator. He's very thorough in his thinking. He's very analytical. He's you use the word measured, which is another word I really like. He thinks in a measured way. He doesn't just blurt things out. So I think he's going to be fantastic at this job. And, we've been communicating for a long time, and we do and will going forward.
Just follow up is, other than Mike being there, which he was, what kind of questions did you ask about, and what did you need to hear from him to beat out other candidates? And did you interview other candidates seriously, or was it always going to be Mike?
I mean, there was not a decision that had been made, because I don't think I or we wanted to kind of even contemplate Bob leaving. We obviously liked Bob a lot, and he was great. So until he made a decision, I don't think I really allowed myself to think about that very much. But once he made the decision, which was pretty late in the process, I think in the background what had been going on is processing how would we go about this. And I always knew that we had this guy sitting here in the wings. Had to have a conversation with him. We did have conversations, obviously, to make sure that everything I thought was correct, and everything he thought about the job. He wanted, I don't know if he wanted it as well, so that we're on the same wavelength. So did I interview other people? No, not really. We didn't go outside, if that's what your question, because I think we believe in continuity. We believe we have a really well-oiled machine, well-running organization. And Mike, gets along fabulously with all the parties inside. Everything from, Kirk Lacob to Brandon Schneider sitting right here. He's very interactive with the business side, which I think is a great thing in our organization, and all the coaches and players.
Mike, what do you think you learned the most from Bob?
Well, I think I'm still learning stuff from him, which is a good thing. Our friendship and relationship remains strong. I think with Bob, the biggest thing I've learned is the value of relationships, and his connection with people, not only within this organization, on this team, but throughout the league, is important. I mean, you guys have seen Bob enough, the amount of times he's had his, earbuds in and on the phone and talking to people. And it's not just catching up with buddies. It's real stuff. And it's communication and that type of stuff from even the last 5 years, getting on top of that and learning to do that. And, I think in the first place, I'm, comfortable with it and good at it. But Bob's taken it to a different level, and it's something that I really have learned to value.
Mike, how do you assess last season as a whole, the regular season, the 2 rounds of the playoffs, and what you have, and sort of the stated, Steph and Clay and Draymond stating that they want to be together with Steve versus the need to get better and contend for a championship and the avenues that you have to get better. In essence, they want to be together, but you also have to get better.
Sure. I think talking about last year, certainly compared with the prior year where we were, the best team in the league and won the championship, last year was internally a letdown for us. At the same time, we were 2 games away from reaching the conference finals. So I think you have to look at it all into perspective. We feel like our core group of guys, led by Steph Curry, is still at an incredibly high level. And for that reason, we feel like we have a chance to always be knocking on the door. And the rest of the roster going down the line, we feel like is a group that's probably needs to be better about playing together and connecting. And so that's something we'll look to solve for this offseason. And by the way, that's not only externally, that's internally, through, working together and doing all that stuff. So I think as far as last year, below our standards, but I think we learned a lot. And I think we know what we need to do to improve. And now it's our job to go out and do it.
Joe, I so want to ask you a question about this new CBA, but I know better. You don't want to go there, I know.
You can ask.
But on Draymond, I mean, what do you think he's meant to what you guys have been able to do over the years? And what do you see him being able to do if he should come back down the road?
What's your question exactly? You want Draymond to do something different?
No. My question to you is, what do you think he's meant to what you guys have done already?
He's meant.
And what do you think he can mean in the going forward in the future as he ages?
Look, he's been a spectacular player for us. We would not have these championships without his involvement. No question. I think everyone understands that in this room. He's meant a lot to this franchise. He's a bit of a controversial player, perhaps in some corners around the league and certain things that have happened over the years. And he knows that. We know that. But the good overwhelms the bad, is what I would say. And, he probably needs to improve just like we all do and get better at certain things. And we probably need, as Mike said, to improve as an organization in some ways, for sure. But he's meant a lot. And I think if he does come back, that he will be very important to our success, certainly going forward in the next few years.
Hi, Mike. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Steve, Bob said his relationship with Steve called it rare. I mean, unique, that a GM and a coach are that close. What is your relationship like with Steve? And can you build off kind of what Bob and Steve established in terms of the camaraderie and the collaboration that Joe has kind of touched on?
Sure. Admittedly, a big part of me taking this position is my relationship with Steve. Steve's a person that I look up to, not only work with, but somebody that I trust in, just in an incredible level. And what he's been able to do for this team and this organization over the last decade or so, it makes my job easier. Not having to worry about on a daily basis what's going on with the coaching staff, what's going on with the head coach. It just takes one thing off the table for me. We have a great relationship. We speak pretty regularly, especially now. But I'm really excited to have somebody like Steve guide me and help me along the way with this, because he's also been in my shoes before as a GM. So he's seen both sides of it. He gets both sides of it, and really looking forward to working with him.
Hi, Mike. Congratulations. A couple weeks ago, Bob said nothing lasts forever. And right now you've had a core of Steph, Clay, and Dre. What would it mean to you to be able to keep those guys Warriors for their entire career moving forward?
Well, that's certainly the hope. We love those guys and value them. And, I think there is a way to do it. And it's something we'll have to work through. But it's certainly possible. And the biggest thing is those guys are still playing at a high level. I mean, Steph's conservatively one of the top 5 players in the league, conservatively. And then, Draymond just had an incredible year. Essentially first team all defense. We're biased, but he's one of the premier defenders in the league. And then Clay's really returned well from his Achilles injury in his knee. So those guys are still playing really well at an older age. And so that makes it possible, I think, to kind of continue to have them here as long as they want to be here.
Hey, Mike, Jason Dumas, Crown 4 Sports. Congratulations, first off. When you're evaluating talent and looking to bring guys in, whether it's free agency or the draft, what skills do you specifically prioritize?
Well, I think first and foremost, you got to distinguish between acquiring talent and building a team. And so for us, the team thing is huge. How do these players work and interact together? Beyond that, as far as individual skill sets, place a premium on being able to play both ways. Defend your position, and on the offensive end to be able to bring something to the table. High premium on shooting, in this day and age with the way the league's going. Shooting is important. And so from there, those are kind of the main things. Then you work your way down with other skill sets. And character is a big part of it. But again, emphasizing what works for our team, and that may not work, for other teams. It's different. But knowing what our coaching staff likes and what's worked here is an important part of the evaluation.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask both of you about the draft. It is Thursday. How comfortable are you guys adding another young player to a roster that obviously, has plenty of young players? And in that same realm, is it possible that you guys are more targeting a ready now player more than, a younger project?
I will let Mike handle that because it's his responsibility. But I'll just say that they all seem young to me. So I don't know. I'm a lot older, so they're all young.
I think our main focus is on, drafting a really good basketball player. And, like Joe said, it's pretty hard not to draft a young guy. Now, the difference between 19 and 23, years of age, sure, you can debate that. But I think our focus, as it has for the most part, is to be drafting players that, are actually good at basketball. And so that'll be the thing. And then we'll look at it from a roster standpoint of how it looks. I mean, could you make an argument last year we were too young in some ways? Sure. But that's what we'll take a look at once the draft has gone by and figure it out from there.
Mike, I know things could change in the next few days or weeks. I know you just took the job, but two names that have come up in, rumor speculation about your team are Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga. You've been on board when they came on, when they were acquired. What are your just general thoughts of Jordan Poole as his future moving forward, and also on Jonathan Kuminga?
We love having those guys here. Jordan, especially with his contract extension, we plan to have him here for 4 more years at least. And then Jonathan's, he's shown really good progression and growth, I think, in his first couple of years. Unfortunately for him, I think the playing time hasn't been there. And so that's on all of our shoulders to figure out how do we get him in the game more. That's on Jonathan's shoulders to improve and make the right adjustments to his game, as well as, our front office, our coaching staff, figuring out what works. So both those guys, really, really good young players we're pleased with. They have great value around the league. And, obviously a lot of rumors and stuff come up at this time of the year, but we're happy with those guys.
Hey, Mike, just kind of piggyback off of that, Jonathan's going to year 3, Moses year 3, Jordan turned 24 today. How do you kind of weigh the big three, which are veterans, and kind of those younger guys who are young but aren't rookies anymore as well?
Sure. Well, as most players find, by the time you get into your 3rd year, sometimes it takes to 4, you end up being pretty good. And then this is kind of the time to make that jump. And so we're hopeful that's the case, where these guys aren't necessarily babies or young guys or rookies anymore, and they should be able to be strong contributing players that can complement our older guys. So I think that's the hope. And those guys are certainly on track. They're working really hard, putting the time in, and I think we're confident in what they can do moving forward.
I've got a Juneteenth trivia question for you.
Let's hear it.
I'm kidding. We've seen, obviously, Denver win a championship, and they'll be restocked, and now Phoenix has added Bradley Beal reportedly. Does these moves change maybe your approach at all, or what you might want looking into this season?
We're not.
You can tell us about the call Joe gave you when it went down, by the way.
It's like, so what's the deal? No, I mean, look, we're aware of all the stuff going around us in the league, as far as trades and rumors and all that stuff. But we're pretty focused on our own team. And I think that one thing we came out of last year with is we've got a good enough core and nucleus, and just how do we get better? Is that internally? Is that externally? Is that both? And so, not getting too caught up with what goes on around us, but at the same time, you got to know that stuff. You got to understand it, and you got to also, have a clear feel for what other teams are trying to do in order for us to make the right moves and look at things. So, I don't know, Joe, do you have any more comments on theoretical trades that actually haven't gone through yet?
No.
Technically?
No. All right. Thank you for the hint.
Mike, you mentioned the Jordan Poole contract. There's been various decisions made over the last 4 or 5 years, and we've all had Bob Myers moves. But can we assume that you were in on these, that your opinion was heard, and the Jordan Poole contract is a Mike Dunleavy contract? Or, can we just kind of just assume that, or we're
Sure, it's a Golden State Warriors contract. Those who have been here and made decisions or drafted players, traded players, signed players, we stand behind all those moves over the last few years. So anything I've been here for, I stand on board. And the 3 championships I wasn't, like, I'm down with that too.
Yeah, I would just add a comment to you, Tim, on that. Mike answered it very well. People love to ascribe. I read the stuff too. I read everything. I watch everything. People ascribe, oh, that guy was, Dunleavy's guy, or that guy was Kerr's guy, or whatever. That's actually not how it happens. It's just not true. It is a we thing. I don't know how many times I have to say it. We get in a room, and yes, we argue, we discuss, that's what you're supposed to do. And we come out as one and make a decision for the organization. And that is true with almost every decision, if not every decision that we've ever made on a player. So to say it's one guy's guy or another guy's guy, it's just, that is some media person or some guy out in some other team making that stuff up. Because that doesn't exist.
I'm just, Mike, Joe sitting right next to you. It's been commented by Bob and others that got a fairly strong personality. I know it's going to be tough to answer this maybe when I'm sitting right next to you, but are you ready for this? Are you ready for being in a room where Joe expresses his opinion quite apparently, or texts you, or calls you again, Is this something that you're ready for?
Absolutely. One, getting to know Joe over the last few years, I'm comfortable with it. But 2, I wouldn't want it any other way, as far as having maybe an owner that's less involved, less opinionated, less competitive, less willing to spend to make the roster better, giving us the resources we need. Give me all that stuff versus the alternative. So, yeah, I think I'm ready for it. I'm looking forward to continuing our partnership, and I think we'll have a great relationship.
Mike, the fan base sort of took a wait-and-see approach with Bob when he was promoted. What's your message to the Warriors fan base as you get this new job?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your passion and just investment in this team. With what we've been able to witness the last few years has just been incredible. Love coming to the games and seeing our fans and the way they bring it each and every night. We got the best crowd in the league and just an amazing following, not only through the state, the country, but the whole world. So thank you for your support. And then from that, I think despite what people have said, the future is bright. The future is bright because we have good players now. We have good young players. And then, like I said before, I think our processes are good. Our decision-making is sound, and we're capable of doing the things that we need to do to have long-term sustainability. And so I think we all should be excited.
You mentioned having a conversation, at least so far, with Steph. How involved do you think he will be over the next couple of weeks, and how involved do you want to have him, in rebuilding this roster or doing whatever you do in the next couple of weeks?
Well, look, Steph can be as involved as he wants, as far as I'm concerned, but that's not his personality. He likes to be kept in the loop on stuff, which he's earned and deserved. So I think just because we value his opinion, his thoughts on stuff, I think you're always running things by him. But Steph just wants to work on his game, play some golf, be with his family. So I'm not going to bother him too much.
What's just kind of your vision for this roster heading into next season? What are some areas that you think need to improve on?
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, like it's been said, to be able to get Draymond back would be huge. From there, we would love to make improvements to the point of, can we add some shooting? Can we add some more versatility? And can we add some connectivity? Whether that's, their ball handling, passing, veteran experience. I think we've talked to the coaching staff. We talked to our players. We have a good sense of kind of what we need to do. And fortunately, it's nothing drastic, but there's some things we can do around the margins and, make a move here or there, then we're going to be open to it.
I know you said you want Draymond back, and obviously Steph is untouchable, but are there any other players that you view are unmovable at this point?
At this point, it's, we love our roster, and as far as untouchables and who we'd like to trade and all that, don't care to get too much into specifics, but other than to say that we frankly, we get a lot of calls. People value guys on our roster, so I think we're in a good shape in that respect, and we'll always look to evaluate stuff.
Hi, Mike. On your left right here. One of the first things that Joe said was just how you fit into this culture. And you talked about some of the relationships you have with Steve, with players. Steve's exit interview, he said, one of the main priorities for this organization this summer is rebuilding some of the trust that had propelled your dynasty that might have been shaken this season. What do you see that needs to happen, the steps that have to be taken to rebuild that, and where do you see your role in that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's something that, like I said, can be done amongst the group that we have internally through stuff over the course of the summer, but also some, external changes perhaps where, Steve, we've used the word connectivity, where we're more connected as a group on the floor. You look at the championship team with the Nuggets, those guys were dialed in together. You look at us in 2022, that's how we were. If we can get back to that feel, that standpoint, I think given our talent, that's going to give us a chance to compete for a title.